Hi, fans of high quality entertainment. I am with Brian Ray. Brian Ray has a new song. That's what we're here mainly about, is to talk about his new song. And I've watched the video 4 times now. The very first time I heard the song, it was like catchy. I couldn't get it out of my head. So excellent. Love the chorus.
Yeah.
And yeah, I put down here kick-ass video. Great guitar riff. The chorus is so catchy, the bass work, and the video is very entertaining. So we'll have a link for your video below this video. And I just read today that you have a new album coming out August 2nd. It's
Yep.
on August 2nd, is it?
Yeah. August 2nd on Wicked Cool Records, and it's
Yeah.
called My Town.
Yeah. I was wondering if you'd have a new album or not. So,
Yeah, it's exciting. I've been with Wicked Cool Records, which is little Steven Van Zant's label.
yeah.
Really cool sort of rock and soul label, kind of focused on garage rock and some electrified R&B. Um, Stevie Van Zandt, of course, from the very beginning of time with Bruce Springsteen's band
Yeah.
as his can man,
Yeah.
the owner of this label, and also runs a fantastic radio station at Sirius XM called the Underground Garage. And I remember years back thinking, that's the coolest sounding little, I love these acts. I love that station. Man, wicked cool. I want to be on Wicked Cool Records. This is
Yeah.
way before I even met him.
Wow.
And
Wow.
as it happened, yeah, long story. I had started this band with a partner, writing partner, a friend of mine named Oliver Lieber,
Yeah.
and we had put together about 5 singles, and somehow they found their way to Steven through his
Wow.
wife, actually.
Wow.
And this was an independent release, and he loved it so much that he just said, "Hey, I'm into this. Where is more of it? You guys should do more." And he ended up releasing a whole bunch of them, and we did for about 4 years work an album with him.
Yeah.
One album for a long
Wow.
time on Wicked Cool Records, like 7 or 8 coolest songs in the world,
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
maximum airplay and you get all these accolades. And then in 2017, the Bayonets, that band had sort of quieted down and was on hiatus.
Yeah.
Oliver was busy. I got busy. And then the label came to me and said, would I be interested in doing a solo deal with them? And I, of course, said, I'd love that, So I've been recording these singles, vinyl singles only, since 2017. And that's 7 years. And we got to a point where we had amassed so many singles, they suggest doing a sort of best of album.
Hmm.
And to do that, they wanted 4 new songs.
Yeah.
So here we are. I've got
That's
four
cool.
new tracks. 3 of them are singles. We'll see if he chooses them to be coolest songs in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all up to him. And they'll be all over the radio all summer. So
Yeah.
yeah, really
Yeah.
happy to be here to talk to you about it.
Yeah. You had the number one coolest song in 2022 Argentina, I believe.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
you were in third spot last year. We're going to have to fix that, Brian. Okay.
It's going to be weird this year because I'll have, a few singles possibly up for the running,
Yeah.
and now competing with yourself. But yeah, I think Argentina was my second coolest song of the year.
Wow.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's fun to be appreciated and recognized. Any of
Yeah.
us artists want to be, appreciated and have an audience.
Yeah. Well, you were
Yeah.
appreciated, Brian. Yeah.
Oh,
And,
thank
and
you.
I just want to
Thank
say,
you.
I just want to say the song When the Earth Was Round. I think that's the one. Just I don't want to hear like the other songs that I know are going to be good, right? But
Yeah.
that's so catchy. I
What about I'm going to interview you, Larry.
yeah. Okay.
Let's get down to it.
It's about time, Brian.
Mr. Larry Gray. It's about time, right? What about the song makes you say it's the one, having not yet listened to the others?
Because I just, there's some songs you listen to the first time, you say, yeah, that's good. And then you hear it again and you like it more and more, right?
Yeah.
But this song, I loved it right away. I played it for my girlfriend here, And even she said, just in private, she said that is so catchy. Like she can't get it out of her head, the chorus,
Oh,
right? So I'm sure there might be another song that's almost as good.
thank you very much. That's very kind.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you probably know, and your listeners probably know that as a sort of popular music, a pop songwriter,
yeah,
and mine is sort of clothed in garage rock and roll, sometimes a little R&B in there. Our goal as a writer, any writer, is
yeah.
to get in your head
That's right.
and
Yeah,
be like an earworm, like RFK Jr.
yeah,
Like be an earworm that you can't get out of your head without surgery.
yeah. Well, you succeeded. But do you
Thank you.
think you've like through the years you've kind of improved with your songwriting or like to
God.
like a catchy song type thing or
I don't know, man, but it's a good question. That would be for someone else to answer. All I know is that I love songwriting. I think of it as a challenge and an exercise to write a 3.5 minute movie for your mind, but not so much for your eyes. In
yeah,
the case of this one, you'll see a cool video, but or I hope you think it's cool. Um, but it's a movie for your imagination.
yeah,
The lyric has to be tight. You have to be writing towards the title, writing towards the chorus, and the
yeah,
chorus has to feel like a release and a payoff. It's just like a script for a
yeah,
film, except
yeah.
really tight and short.
Mhm.
So it has to be everything has to be in service to the title.
Yeah,
And I know that sounds very clinical of me to pull it apart like that, but that's what it is. Yeah.
yeah. So do you write the lyrics before the music or is it the music first usually or
I would say it happens in different order all the time. A song
yeah,
could start with a drum beat. A song could start with a guitar lick. It could start with the sound of a melody against certain chords. And the way this one started when the earth was round was funny enough. I heard an ad that was on, I think it was on cable television. And very boldly, the melody came out on a dominant seventh note against a chord and just started that way, just riding on that note. And it's a very common tonality, but nobody ever just leans into a dominant seventh note on the chord. It's the basis of blues, whatever. It's like everywhere,
yeah,
but not a leading note usually. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Not
That's so
what your
cool.
statement is. And
Yeah,
I just thought that's so unusual. Uh it's so simple that it's genius.
yeah,
And I don't know, I thought it was cool. So that's where it started.
yeah,
Banging away at, whatever that is, a G7 chord and singing that that seventh note on it. It just was intriguing to me. And then as
whatever
it
a seventh
around,
note is.
what's yeah, whatever seventh note is, dominant seven.
Yeah,
Anyway, or flat seven, as some might call it. Then I started to think, okay, what's this gonna be? Because it's so striking, it's kind of a jarring sound. And I thought, well, what about writing to romance in a post-truth world?
yeah,
What if a guy loves his woman so much, but she's been getting online and doing her own research an
yeah,
awful lot
yeah,
and has come up with a whole lot of reasons why things that are became what they are, or her own ideas about a lot of things. And he's sort of grieving the love they had and has lost her down a rabbit hole.
yeah,
And the plea is, can't we get back to the way it was when the earth was round?
yeah. That's
When
good.
we all could agree on some very simple primary things.
Yeah.
And lyric goes through a whole litany of hilarious and unfortunately debatable conspiracy theories. And
Yeah.
I think it's fun.
And that guitar riff, is it kind of easy to think of a new guitar riff? Because that's a really strong guitar riff too in the song.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, man, it's just like, I was born and raised intrigued by lead guitar and guitar in general and songwriting. So they all go together for me in
yeah,
one toxic
yeah,
brew. And for me, writing guitar licks has always felt natural. And if I succeed in doing something that you think is cool, that makes me super happy. But yeah, it's just I love doing it. I
yeah,
never sit down and go like, I gotta think of a cool guitar riff.
yeah,
What should I do? It just sort of like things occur to me and they're either pleasing to me or I go on to another one. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? And in
yeah,
this case, I had that chord down, 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 that just sort of banging away. And I thought it's going to line over it. What would it be? And I just thought of a weird sort of bending, sort of
yeah, yeah,
dizzy click that got you off balance because the
yeah,
lyric is about people who are off balance.
yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah. So I know you mainly play guitar and bass in Paul McCartney's band, in case anybody doesn't know. But do you
Yeah.
play like keyboard? Do you know keyboards and maybe drums at all? Or
Well, so I start a given track usually with just a simple drum beat and guitar and a click. And say, I'll start the demo that way, just a very simple
so,
beat.
so you can play drums a bit.
Uh, well, I started as a drummer
Oh,
and I
really? Wow.
and
Wow.
I was not very good at it.
Okay.
And my best friend in junior high school had a flashy double kick drum, big Ludwig kit, like twice as many drums as I had. And he was much more flashy than I was. And I was also playing guitar at the time. We wanted a high school band together, and you ain't going to do much with two drummers, to start a band. You could get a lot more done
Yeah.
with a guitar player and a drummer. So I just easily said, okay, I'll play guitar. And that's basically how I committed more to guitar than to drums. So I have him to thank.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
cool.
Floris Leachman's late son,
Wow.
Brian. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Frau Blucher's son.
okay. So going back to your, I guess your childhood, like I was saying, your first big gig, I guess, was playing with Bobby Boris Pickett, right? With
Yeah.
Monster Mash. And
Yeah,
then
that's
from
right.
there, Etta James, you were the band leader, which is amazing. Like you were what, 17, 18? And the,
I was 17 with Bobby Boris Pickett,
yeah,
and then I was like 19 by the time I got with Etta. Yeah.
wow. Yeah. And that was
Yeah.
14 years.
Well, and more because it was like 15 years, and then I went on to collaborate with her, play on her records, write music with her, and she guested on mine all the way up in 2005.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, great album. I
Uh,
mean, to me, it's sort of it's so fascinating. I just think Etta James had a way of connecting with people in a very elevated, rare, direct way. And it was straight through the heart.
yeah.
That's how she connected with people. It
Yeah.
wasn't, here's a cool song with a cool beat and all these cool background vocals. She just went in with her lyric and a delivery that brought people to a jaw-dropping silence, just getting invested in a song. That's the talent of a singer like Etta James, and
Yeah.
not many like her. They pull you in and you're invested in their emotion. And she could do that live on record, do it anywhere she went. And it was a remarkable thing to be a part of. Yeah.
Yeah. And then your late sister Jean, she was in a duo in the,
She sure was, man. Yeah, thanks.
yeah.
She was interested in rock and roll and introduced me to rock and roll when I
Yeah,
was
I was
just
going to ask you that. Like if she was kind of a main influence on you.
a main influence
Yeah.
and mentor, really. I looked up to her. She was 15 years my elder. So,
Yeah.
you know, she was already a Bobby Soxer when I was an infant,
Yeah.
and turning me on to, Elvis and Little Richard and all of the early ones. And I was just like, holy fuck, this is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, so later on, she only lived with my family for a year. She's a half sister. She moved on, started getting into folk music, married a guy named Jim Glover, and they started a folk rock band called Jim and Jean. And they had a series of, I think, two or three record deals on 3 labels. They were on, was it Phillips? And then they were on Verve Forecast,
Mhm.
a Warner Brothers affiliate, I believe. And yeah, they did a bunch of albums. They did about 4 albums. They used a lot of Bob Dylan's band. You had Al Cooper on keyboards and sometimes
Wow.
guitar, and Harvey Brooks on bass from the Highway 61 era.
Mhm.
And they did these great records. Well, I think they're great, but I'm super partial.
Yeah.
And I used to go as a kid, as a 9-year-old, to her shows, way, way underage, to be out there in those nightclubs, taking in this ambience and being so intrigued with it all, and just kind of picturing myself being up there one day, but of course being way too young and
Yeah.
thinking, oh, it could never happen. That's for other people. But yeah, and she gave me my first shot playing on a live stage at the Doug Weston's Troubadour in West Hollywood when I was 15.
Um, and
And when I did Bobby Boris, when I did the Monster Mash, she was in that band with me.
oh, really? Cool.
I invited
Wow.
her in on it. And Brian England was the drummer of that band. So it was sort of like my high school band with my sister and 2 other women singing backgrounds playing the Monster Mash.
That's
And it was
cool.
great fun.
And is it true the story about Neil Young and the song Cinnamon Girl with,
That is true indeed. Yeah.
okay.
Um, Great story. I mean, in those days with Gene at nightclubs, or I was at a nightclub one night in Huntington Beach called the Golden Bear, and Jim and Gene were on that night. We were backstage. They're kind of warming up, and I'm just fly on the wall, little kid, and I must have been 11, 12 years old, and in walks this guy with a guitar case and mutton chops, and it's Neil Young. And I
Mhm.
was already huge into this new band called Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah.
Well, he sat down and I'm just like, oh my God, what's happening here? Pulled the guitar out and started just kind of riffing with them a little bit and kind of jamming on one of their songs as they warmed up. Well, and shoot forward, about a year later, I was told by Gene that Neil was coming over, and I was like, "Oh my God, here we go again! This is so fun." Gene was going to be rehearsing with their band. We're at a beach house at the time, and I'm outside waiting for him, and up pulls this white Mini Cooper, all white old Mini Cooper, the original one,
Yeah.
with blacked out windows. It's this cool little thing. And he used to call it the Norge because it looked like a little refrigerator. And that was a brand of refrigerators. And the door opens and out walks the steps this guy in a 3-piece white suit, black sunglasses, black hair, big old black sideburns. And I told Neil when I saw him many years later, I said, that's when I knew what I wanted to do when I got older. I wanted to be you. He laughed.
Yeah.
And, yeah, what I found out many years later is that my sister and her husband, Jim Glover, had fallen on rockier times. Neil was involved with someone as well. And Gene and Neil had quite a dalliance. And he apparently wrote a few songs,
Hmm.
largely about her. Cinnamon Girl is the one that's mainly about her, and he has said as much.
Uh,
But as with any writer, it's an amalgamation of different influences,
yeah.
There are a
Like
others,
you
but I
you
won't
could
go on record with them just because I don't want to get into a kerfuffle with Neil Young fans
yeah.
about what these songs are about.
But Brian, you could, in time write a song about me, right? Like just being influenced.
Larry, oh Larry of the Graves.
Uh,
He's not
so
in the
let,
grave. He
let's
just
talk
made
about the
the
Beatles
grave.
for a minute, Brian. So
That?
one of my first memories, and along with so many millions of others, I was 5 years old and I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and they've been in my life, like all of my life, right? Like Paul
Yeah.
McCartney, too, of course, John Lennon. And
Oh.
I'm just wondering, what are your memories of? You've obviously saw the Ed Sullivan Show too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, probably like you, we had heard a single on the radio. Maybe it
Yeah,
was Please Please Me or something. We're like, oh my God, this is new.
yeah.
Maybe She Loves You had just come out, and we heard that they're going to be on Ed Sullivan. I was 8 years old, I think. Yeah. Or nine, just turned nine. Yeah, I just turned nine a month earlier. And I was on the floor waiting for the Ed Sullivan show to come on. I used to watch that a lot on Sunday
Yeah,
nights.
yeah.
And we all knew it was coming. All the anticipation was so big. It's possible that by then they already had several songs in the top 10. I'm not
Possibly,
clear
yeah.
on that. I'm not the biggest sort of,
Yeah,
super fan of all dates and times of
yeah.
all things Beatles. Other people are really good at that though. Yeah, so there I was on the floor in the sort of the media rumpus room of our Glendale house, and here they come, and I was just like, "Hey, man, the whole world changed." Some people
Yeah,
say it was like the Wizard of Oz when it goes from black and white to color.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was like the whole world switched to
yeah.
Technicolor,
And
and
then it was just after, John Kennedy's assassination. So that was just so uplifting for everybody.
really good point.
Yeah.
And that's nice to hear that you got that even as a Canadian.
Yeah, I remember that, Brian. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, as a
Uh,
5-year-old on the TV. So yeah.
well, for me, it was a double shot because I had also my father had left.
No.
So I was sitting there with a giant hole in my heart,
Mm,
and Kennedy got shot. And it wasn't okay to enjoy life for a while for any Americans. And I had sort of a double trudge kind of situation with those two things going on at the same time.
yeah.
So that when the Beatles came on 4 months after Kennedy was shot, it was like the whole world was given permission to have a nice night again and to enjoy some life. You're right. It's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, just
Yeah.
a couple of Beatles questions, if you don't mind. What
Sure.
what was your opinion on finally watching the Get Back documentary and mainly when Paul's coming up with the Get Back song, like just right,
Yeah.
you're watching him create it. I was just wondering your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just kind of frame this way. I mean, so I've been so lucky to be with Paul for now 22 years, and
Yeah,
it's not a gig, it's a life-changing event in my life that continues. And obviously I'm so fortunate and so glad to be there. And also at the same time, it's a bit of a busman's holiday to watch and listen to Beatles stuff because I live it in my professional life. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
So a busman's holiday is a bus driver going on a bus vacation. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
So he probably wants to go on a ship or do something else. So I come at something like that in an intimidating 8.5 hour or whatever it is, documentary, 3 parts or whatever it is. It's like a lot to take on. So
yeah,
I was a bit intimidated, a little bit trepidatious about doing it. Part of me doesn't want to know details. I'm happy with my ignorance and
yeah.
my opinion of what happened. And sometimes you don't want that to be disturbed. You want your own version of what happened to be the thing.
Mhm.
But in the case of the Beatles, there's been so much conjecture and so much rubbish
Yeah,
said and printed and sort of assumed about them and their breakup. But an alarming silence from the band after it, as if they didn't really want to share that stuff. So people got to make up their own minds about it. Got to believe that the world was flat in
yeah,
their own way for
yeah,
quite a while. And but anyway, I knew I was going to see this. I was excited about it being well preserved. I'd seen an interview with Peter Jackson talking about it on Colbert, and I went like, okay, this is intriguing. Dug into it, and I really enjoyed it. Now, I'm a guy who enjoys a bit of psychology, and I'm a guy who's done some therapy, whatever,
yeah,
needed therapy. But what you got from this was these brilliant adult talents these four tremendous, bright, meteorites, and I was just thinking, or meteors. I was just thinking, wow, I don't know that I want to know that much about them, but in fact, when you got to see it, you got to learn it very understandable why they had gotten to where they got. I have my own opinions on that, having watched it.
Yeah.
Uh, and for the longest time, we'd all assumed, like people thought, Paul broke up the Beatles and he's somehow responsible and he's somehow bad or something like that. And what you see in Get Back is more of what happened.
It's just a
And
band, right? Like,
just a band.
yeah.
And, I think maybe Paul was trying to keep it together at a time where some of the others were kind of done, kind of over it. And
Yeah.
it's so sad because we don't want to believe that a Beatle could be over the Beatles.
Yeah.
We're not over the Beatles.
Yeah.
You can't be over the Beatles.
Yeah.
Uh, and he was clearly, really fighting for something lovely. And anyway, and the Get Back song, yeah, remarkable. Paul is a bloody wizard,
Yeah.
He is truly of another solar system in a way,
I remember
and
you. Remember you telling me 16 years ago, Brian, when I was doing a video for you, Coming Up Roses, and you said that Paul was always whistling or tapping his fingers, or like the music is just
yeah,
in him, right? Like,
the music is just in him, and that
yeah,
hasn't changed since he was a child.
yeah,
It just
wow,
it hasn't changed, but it's also because he practices at it. Whereas I write when I feel like it, right when it's time to write. Well, Paul writes all the time.
yeah,
That
wow,
dedicated songsmith. He's always at it. He's
yeah,
always thinking of something, like I said. But anyway, yeah. So when he walked into the studio that day and went directly to a bass and started strumming it like it's a guitar,
yeah,
instead of playing guitar, he's just going glung, 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 glung on a bass and starts kind of, mumbling phrases and then getting back to Get Back. It's just like, holy mackerel. You see that in real time. It's kind of striking.
yeah, yeah. I have a question from one of my viewers.
Yeah.
Uh, are there any songs that you worked on with Paul but never performed live?
Yeah, great
Like one or
question.
two, maybe.
This is gonna be a kerfuffle if people start talking about this. Brian said, uh, yeah, yeah, we've done a bunch of songs in rehearsal that didn't make it into the show for various reasons, his own reasons,
Yeah.
and he gets to have his own reasons. One of them being Backseat of My Car. That was
Oh,
one that,
wow.
the whole band really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And the truth is that Paul McCartney has had this remarkably long, verdant career, and he gets to choose what lyrics, songs, and melodies still resonate and appeal to him now.
Hmm.
Not everything he wrote when he was 18 or 17
Yeah.
feels good to come out of your mouth in words now. It's just, you know,
Yeah.
I want to do all sorts of wacky stuff. I want to do, Babies in Black. I want to do all sorts of cool stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
but not all of it feels right for him, and that's got to be his right.
Yeah. Has
And
has
that's
there
just
ever
one
ever
example.
has there ever been a song you've suggested and you actually ended up having it in the concert?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, gosh, I believe I suggested, God, I'm trying to think right now. We all were suggesting Helter Skelter many
Yeah.
years ago.
Oh, yeah.
He
Yeah.
and he resisted that for a long time, and we just didn't let up on it. It was just being very obnoxious, and he finally relented, and then he got into it. I would say there was a point at which we were going to do Day in the Life, and he was reticent. He said, I don't know. It's just so John. It's so righteously John, the tonality and the way the verse goes. And although he wrote the whole bridge section and arranged it and helped arrange it, he felt that maybe that was too much. And I said, well, if not you, who? And he went, oh, never thought of it, And so we did. I think I might have suggested letting go. I might have suggested 1985, but I'm not really clear. That's a
Yeah,
while
that's
ago.
cool.
Yeah.
And do you, maybe not now, but do you get nervous before a show?
Interesting. Good question. I don't get usually nervous before like an arena or a stadium show. What I'll get nervous for is a small one-off or a TV show that's
Wow.
different
Yeah.
from our routine,
Yeah.
because you have to keep in mind when we're doing an arena or a stadium show, we have this day set out. It's like
Yeah.
kind of like you leave the hotel at an hour, you get to the venue, you have lunch together, you chill for a minute, you do sound check, you chill a whole bunch more and have some dinner, you play the show, then you all leave together with Paul and party out on the bus afterwards with a macarita and a slice of pizza.
Yeah.
But so because of that arc of a show day, you get used to it and you get into sort of a rhythm and a flow, and therefore you're not nervous. But when somebody throws you a curveball, like you're doing this show and it's a one-off and you don't have that same warm-up, sound check, meal,
Yeah.
hang,
Yeah.
it's kind of different and it throws you off a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit.
Uh,
But otherwise, I feel very natural and happy on stage.
that's cool. I just have a couple more questions here. Do you have any memories of Glastonbury 2022? Like that was quite
Wow.
the show.
God, that's amazing. That was 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share this with you. It's mega, and I knew that it's very important for Paul. Paul really cares. He cares in Fresno, and he cares in Glastonbury. He cares. He wants it to be good. He wants to put over his message and knock it in the net. He wants to kick it in.
Mhm.
And so we want that with him. We want that for him. And we're on a team together. So when you're coming out to Glastonbury, you know how big it is. And again, we can't really do a sound check because the audience is already there. So you're off balance to begin with. Those are the sort of, like I said, those off balance shows.
Yeah.
But we'd done a whole run up of shows, and we'd just done a little sneak in show at a place called the Cheese and Grain in Boom, of all places, a little pub. And so that was for 100 people with no
Yeah.
cell phones, and it was righteous. So when it came time for Glastonbury, we'd done a little warm up backstage, and there's so many celebrities, and they're all coming at you, and they're all smiley back patting,
Yeah.
and that can be a little distracting. And sometimes I fear for that distraction and all of us staying together and focused as a band, because
Yeah.
we got to go out there as a team and kick it in the net.
Yeah.
And so we get out there, and what you're struck with is what you forget. When you're in a festival and there's no walls back there, there's no seating back there, there's no ceiling back there, sound, therefore, doesn't come back to you. It's not being reflected off of a wall or the back or a ceiling or anything.
Yeah.
It's going out there and just disappearing like you're in outer space.
Yeah.
Also, applause, yelling, and everything else is getting lost too. So
Wow.
you go out, and it is a virtual pop-up city. It's 200,000 people. It's unimaginable. As far as you can see, it's like hills, this natural outside, venue, hills of people, just on and on, tents, flags. It goes on forever. And yet you finish your first song and you hear like,
Yeah.
and it's like one of those.
And you got 3 hours
videos.
to play, right?
It's one of those shred videos, and you go like, holy, and it takes the wind out of you.
Yeah.
And I know I just sort of like, I don't know what Paul's thinking or feeling, but in that moment, I imagine that's hard for him too.
Yeah.
And then I go like, well, my job is to stay focused and kick it in the net. Just keep going. Just turn in one song after another. Who cares what they're doing out there? Well, that's what Paul did as well. And he just stuck with it and he just kicked ass. And I could see that registered for him as well. I could see it
Yeah.
out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah.
You want feedback. We're used to stadiums and we're used to like arenas where it's just
Yeah. Yeah.
a wall of appreciation.
Yeah.
Because of no feedback, you're just like, it's in space.
Yeah.
So then the next day, reviews were off the hook, like
Yeah.
career defining, best Glastonbury ever.
Yeah.
You know, he was so loved that night. And part of that is his humility. He comes at it with, like a generosity of spirit and just like a real humility. And then I was on vacation soon after. I went to Italy, grooving out in Positano. And I get a call and it's Nancy and Paul. And they're driving down the road and they say, "Hey, Brian, what are you doing? Where are you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm in Positano." And they said, like, "Well, what did you think? What was that like for you?" And I said, "Wow, it was really strange. It was kind of off-putting, with that silence." And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "But then, and finally you could hear the applause and the singing going on and on and on, even after we left." And then I looked at the papers and the reviews were just, career defining triumph.
Yeah.
And I said to Paul, I said, "I'm just going to go with that."
Yeah.
It was a career defining triumph.
It's
And
pretty fun. It's pretty funny though that Paul kind of felt the same way that you did, right? At that time.
apparently,
Yeah.
apparently
Yeah.
that's what he felt. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, just two more questions. So
You
what do
got
you
it.
think of the state of rock music today? I mean, there's some great bands like the Lemon Twigs, uh, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who release like 3 albums a year. And
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on rock music today?
Well, I mean, I have a few thoughts. I think that it used to be that the audience drove the business, and now the business tries to drive the audience. The business has decided what people want to hear rather than people deciding what they want to hear. I don't believe people have changed fundamentally since adoring the Beatles and Stones. It's just the business has decided to commoditize uh, this business in the way they do, that people want pop and they want hip hop and they want rap and they want country.
Yeah.
And rock isn't really as big a driver in their mind anymore. Yet you look at AC/DC playing last night in Spain,
Yeah.
and people are going fucking bananas, and it's 100,000 people. Something tells me those people aren't being served what they desire.
Yeah.
Kids want to shred. They're all over YouTube shredding away, practicing guitar. A friend of mine owns a music store. And during COVID, it was all shuttered down and there were no guitars on the wall. And I went in there to bring a guitar in for service. I said, "Hey, man, I'm really sorry. This must be ravaging you guys." He goes, "No, fortunately, we got online just before COVID. We're selling 3 times the amount of guitars as before."
Wow.
So part
Yeah.
of me knows that kids are at home shredding their faces off and that there might be another guitar boom. But guitar oriented rock isn't what's being served on a mass scale by the business. But there's still great stuff out there
Yeah.
all over Wicked Cool Records. Listen to their whole roster. You have like the Dolly Rots, you have the Woggles, you have Stevie Van Zandt himself, you have Jesse Malin, you have Steve Conte, my label mate and pal. You have these great artists out there doing it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're out there. Just you have to do more of the work as an audience now to find them.
Yeah. I've been a fan of Sparks for 50 years, and it's like
Yeah.
they're doing as well as ever, so it just, it does make you feel kind of good about music. Um,
Yeah. Well, they found their audience early on Sparks,
yeah.
and they stayed true to who they were, and they just kept putting out material. They
Yeah.
just kept, and they had a very catchy formula.
Yeah.
That handsome, like sprite guy Russell,
Yeah.
and then Ron being a total weirdo back there,
Yeah.
like looking around. And they stuck with that formula and never changed. And they're lovely people.
Yeah.
We used to
Yeah.
hang out at a cafe up in West Hollywood all the time.
Yeah.
Honestly, unabashed Beatles fans and big Paul fans.
Yeah.
And that once, the only time I came to Paul for an autograph outside of maybe my aunt or something
Yeah.
was for Ron and Russell, because I know how much Paul likes them too,
Yeah.
because he imitated them in
Yeah.
his coming up
Coming up. Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
And because of that, I thought maybe he'd have a soft spot for him, and he did. Yeah, he
Yeah.
signed.
That
Yeah.
is cool. Yeah. I only have one thing left to say. This is a message for Paul. You can maybe forward it to him if you like. It's from all of the Paul McCartney fans, though, not just me. We want the archive editions of London Town and Back to the Egg.
Whoa, brave move to the hoop. Larry and team
Yeah.
advocating. I'd say, go for it. Just keep banging away on it at the forums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I wish you all the best in that endeavor, my friend.
Okay, thank you. So once more, your new song, which I'll have a link for below this video. And I hope everybody checks it out. And when does the contest start again for the Cool Song of the Year? What month would that be?
I think that they start the voting in early December, and then it
Okay.
closes. It's like 3 weeks or something like that. And then it closes right before the end of the year, tabulate, and then they announce. I think on New Year's Day they announce. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, please stay tuned in. And you could put the video link in as well for my first single, When the Earth Was Round. And we have 2 more singles slated for release before the album comes out August 2nd. It's called My Town on Wicked Cool Records. And I hope you like it. And I hope you support it. It's on vinyl and CD and streaming wherever you like to stream.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your time, Brian. I really appreciate it. And I know my viewers were very excited to, knowing that I was going to be talking to you. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Larry. Hey, great to see you, man.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
good care. Bye-bye.
Bye. That worked good. Thanks,
Yeah.
Brian.
You're welcome. Man. Yeah, finally. Great questions, Larry. Very good. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.